So today we've got something a little bit different to the usual run-of-the-mill cars. This is a 1988 Mercedes Benz 300 SL. It's fitted with the straight 6 3-litre petrol engine and got roughly 106,000 miles on the clock. As part of the service on this Mercedes, I'm going to be changing the oil and filter. So under the bonnet here, as I do with all oil changes, I like to take the oil filler cap off first, loosen the dipstick. It just allows the air back into the engine as the oil's coming out of the bottom, and hopefully it will drain out a bit smoother without splashing everywhere. Now on this particular model, the oil filter is a metal spin-on filter right here, and we'll start by changing that. Okay, so I've tried various tools to try and loosen the oil filter. It's way too tight to shift by hand and not had much success apart from chewing the oil filter up. So I'm going to remove this air filter, or attempt to, and hopefully that'll give us a bit more space to work down there. It looks like it's got 3 10mm nuts holding it. One there, one over the back here. One down the side there. No doubt there's going to be several vacuum pipes, maybe a few multi-plugs to take off as well. Looks like we've got a plug here. Not too sure how that comes out. Oh, that was it. Looks like an airflow sensor. A pipe on the top here with another small hose going in, another pipe going into it. Hopefully I can disconnect that off of there. Oh, that's it. Don't know whether we have to undo those. Doesn't look like it. There we go. Gives a bit more space down there, and you can see the chewed up mess I've made of the old filter. I think it's moved fractionally, but it is very tight. I was hoping that I'll be able to get a bit more purchase on it with these grips. Now the air filter's out, but it looks like that throttle linkage might be in the way as well. I think somebody's wound that on tight without lubricating the O-ring first. I've made such a mess of it, it's difficult to get a good grip on it now. Don't want to slip and punch something or break something. Did try the oil filter removal cup tools first, which you put on the top of the oil filter, but that just slipped. It was so tight. One of these, which matches the shape in the top of the filter, but yeah, it was just so tight it just spun. I've tried a strap tool on here as well, which just creaked until it was ready to snap. I've also got a three-legged oil filter tool which goes on there, but unfortunately that didn't wind down quite small enough. It sort of got a grip, but it just slipped. So back to the good old pipe grips. Shouldn't ever be this tight. That's incredible. I think we got it scared now. Me scared, that's for sure. Just got to be mindful of slipping off and breaking something. Not only the throttle finger, but my fingers. Throttling kids rather. That's it. At long last. That's made me sweat. There we go. One properly chewed up oil filter. So before I put this one back on, I'm going to put a bit of oil on there and just put it around this seal. Hopefully avoid that issue for the next person who has to remove it, which will probably be me anyway. And that's another good point. So these seals, they do just pull out of the oil filter, as you can see. So make sure the old one isn't still stuck on this surface here, which it isn't. As you can see, this is an aftermarket filter. You should be able to pick one of those up around £10, under £10 really. That'll do, just hand tight. I think King Kong done the last one up. Right, we'll go ahead and get that air filter back on next. Right, let's get this back on. Plug this emissions pipe back on down here. That little one goes in there. It's in. Then we've got this sensor here. That's it. and 3 10mm nuts. Just gave us that little bit more space that we needed to crank that oil filter off. Okay, that's all back together. We'll take it up in the air and drain the oil out next. Now the sump plug on this is a 13mm head size, just here, conveniently placed, so when the engine's warm, as it is, the oil will probably shoot out all over this suspension subframe. I've got a single hex socket, nothing wrong with using a spanner. I just like to use this because it reduces the risk of rounding the sump plug off. I just want to crack it loose at this stage. I want to try and, I've taken the old oil filter box, try and stop it all going all over the suspension. I don't know how successful this is going to be. I'll probably end up covering myself and not the car, but we'll see. Can't really see what I'm doing now because I've put that in the way. This could go drastically wrong, but let's see what happens. Right, I think that's nearly out now. Hopefully that's working. Okay, we'll just leave that to do its thing for a bit. Doesn't look terribly mucky, but the car doesn't do many miles. So this has been draining now for a good, I don't know, 7 or 8 minutes now. Slowed down to a constant drip rather. Going to put the sump plug back in. Something to check before you refit it. It's got a copper washer on here, which they're generally good to go again several times, but it's just worth checking to make sure it hasn't been squashed or split, crushed. That looks fine. You can obviously pick these up at the same time you get your oil and filter from your supplier. I think you could probably leave it all night and it'll just keep on dripping slowly like that, so I'm quite happy that we've got a majority of the oil out. That's it. Brilliant. Okay, we'll drop it down and get some oil back in it. Right, I've got my funnel in here. Now when I picked up the parts and the oil, I was told 6 litres this engine holds. I'm pretty certain 6 litres didn't come out. It's always a good idea to put a bit less in than they specify because it's not always correct. At least if you put less in, you can top it up in dribs and drabs. Put too much in and you've got to fiddle around underneath, just draining a small amount out. So I'm going to go ahead and put 5 litres in to start with. We'll see how it goes from there. Price of oil does vary quite a bit. There's so many different brands and specifications on the market. But if you take your registration number with you to your supplier, they'll be able to look up exactly what's needed for your particular engine. I should think you should be able to pick up 5 litres for around 40 or 50 pounds at this moment in time anyway. And having too much oil can cause damage, just like having not enough. So we want to get it as close to the maximum mark as possible without going over. Quite a big old engine, so 6 litres is probably about right, but yeah, we'll start with 5. That's about it. Should have said, well, as you can see, make sure your dipstick's up a little bit. It just allows the oil to go back into the engine a bit smoother without glugging back up, because it lets the air up out of the dipstick tube. Right, so now that's in there, I shall start the engine up and let it tick over for a few seconds. Just make sure your oil pressure light goes straight out. I'm going to have to get inside the car. Oh. It's got an alarm on it. Oil pressure light's gone straight out. Sounds good. You don't need to rev it at all. It's not a good idea to rev an engine that's just been drained and refilled, because it can take a little while for the oil to circulate. So just let it tick over for a little bit. That will be plenty of time. So I'll just let that stand now for 3 or 4 minutes, and then we'll check on the dipstick and see how much more oil we need to put in. Right, I've cleaned the dipstick. You can see it's quite clear on this one, unlike some of the more modern cars. Minimum mark is the top of this red plastic lump, and the maximum is the bottom of this red plastic lump. So we'll see, hopefully it's somewhere in between the two and not over. Oh yeah, you can see it's there. So I'll put probably another 0.3 in and see how far up that comes. I imagine it's going to take a good half a litre. But as I say, just small dribs and drabs so you don't go over the maximum, then have to try and drain a little bit out. Right, that'll do for now. Again, leave that for 3 or 4 minutes and just keep repeating the process. Checking with the dipstick and topping up. Right, so I've been topping up in dribs and drabs for the last few minutes. Well, a few minutes, probably been going on for 15 minutes now. And as you can see there, that is just touching the maximum. So we call it a day at that. That's taken just under 7 litres in the end. So it would have been okay to pour that 6 litres in, but more often than not I've found it's around the other way and the engine doesn't hold as much as they specify. But in that case, it was actually a little bit more. So now I'm happy with that oil level. All that remains is to put that cap back on. I've already checked the sump bung's tight, the oil filter's tight. As with all the jobs I do, I'll give it a bit of a road test and then bring it back in and make sure there's no leaks. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully the video's been of some help for you. And if it has, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It'll help our channel out no end. Cheers.